Hello everybody, welcome to the Gaming Grappler, and for today's video, I'm going to be discussing my top 5 best and worst console names. That's right, we're only talking about the name of the console. I cannot stress this enough. The actual quality of the machine does not matter for this list. We are just judging a book by its cover, and the criteria for what makes a good console name is if the name accurately describes what the console is, what it does, and if the name rolls off the tongue, if the brand is actually recognizable. That is the criteria for what we're judging in this list. Without further ado, before I begin my list, I just want to ask you guys to please like, comment, and subscribe if you like the video. You would be surprised that I know people in real life that don't even know how to subscribe on YouTube or hit the notification bell. But that being said, let's get started with our list. So for the number 5 worst console name, I'm going to have to go with the Nintendo Wii. I know that's a surprise because the Nintendo Wii is one of Nintendo's best-selling consoles, but the name itself is actually really terrible when you think about it. So for starters, what makes the Wii such a popular console is the fact that it was one of the first consoles to revolutionize motion controls. So you would think that a console that is sold based on motion controls and movement would throw that in the name, but it just doesn't. The Wii doesn't describe anything about what the console is, what it does, and it's probably one of the worst names ever just because of the innuendo of the name. Just try telling somebody, hey, I'm going to play with my Wii. I'm going to have some friends over to play with my Wii. And I know that everybody who's a millennial is probably sick of hearing that joke over and over and over again. But when we had this thing in 2007, when we all got this console, everybody was making those jokes. It was hyper annoying. So for that alone, despite the fact that the console sold like hotcakes, I'm giving this the number 5 worst console name. And for the number 5 best console name, I'm going to have to go with PlayStation. All of them, 1 through 5, are taking up this spot on the list because let's face it, they all have the same name. And to be honest with you, it's a good name. And you're going to notice in this list that simplicity is gold. PlayStation is all you need to know what the machine is. It is a station that you play video games on. And I know a lot of people don't like the fact that Sony doesn't give their console a special name every generation, but to be honest with you, from a consumer standpoint, this is really convenient. All the consumers got to know is that they got to buy the next number in the series, and that's all you got to do. It's super convenient. Even grandma can figure out that 5 is higher than 4, so they know what they're getting their kid on Christmas. So basically, simplicity is gold, and Sony just wins the number 5 spot by default for playing it safe. And for the number 4 worst named console is the Nintendo Virtual Boy. What is with Nintendo just naming their consoles just after creepy things like the Virtual Boy? Like, hey everybody, I'm gonna play with my Virtual Boy. Like, you couldn't have think of a worse name to name your console. And to be fair, it is somewhat descriptive in that it's supposed to be a virtual reality machine, but even then, it just doesn't work. And you can tell that because this is one of Nintendo's worst-selling consoles of all time. So number 4, the creepy-ass Virtual Boy takes the spot. And for the number 4 best-named consoles is the PlayStation Portable. Because like I said before, simplicity is gold. PSP just rolls off the tongue well. It's only 3 syllables, and it perfectly explains what the console it is. It's a portable PlayStation that you play your portable PlayStation games on. It is descriptive, it explains what it is, and it's good. It rolls off the tongue well. What more can you say? It gets the number 4 spot for, like I said before, playing it safe. And the number 3 worst named console is the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. And a big reason why this console is so high on the list is based solely off the fact that its name is a mouthful. My vocal cords want to bleed every time I say Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S. There are too many syllables, and even if you want to shorten it down, let's say I want to just talk about the Xbox or the Series S. There are 2 S's in a row. That's one of the worst things you can do. Do you have any idea how many takes I've ruined just referring to the Series S? I'm surprised I've even managed to get this one done. But in addition to having one of the worst names out there, a big problem about this console is the fact that Grandma doesn't know the difference between the Series X and the Series S. It's not descriptive enough to let her know which one is better or which one is worse. How many little Timmies out there have gotten a Series S when they wanted a Series X? Probably way more than you think and way more than you can imagine. So for that alone, and for the fact that my vocal cords want to bleed every time I do this take, this is number 3. And the number 3 best console name goes out to the Nintendo DS for the same reason that the PlayStation and the PlayStation Portable take up the number 4 and 5 spots. It is a super simple name that accurately describes what the console is. What is the main selling point for the Nintendo DS? The fact it has 2 screens, and one of those screens is a touch screen. It also helps that DS is only 2 syllables, so it's super convenient and comfortable to say. Saying I'm playing with my DS rolls off the tongue, really smooth, and Grandma knows what she's buying at the store, so there's a lot of brand recognition there. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So the Nintendo DS, Nintendo gets number 3. And the number 2 worst console name in existence goes to the Xbox One. Now you would think that Microsoft, one of planet Earth's most largest and powerful companies, would be run by this motley crew of super genius James Bond villains. But you'd be wrong. Apparently Microsoft is run by the villains from Austin Powers. And nobody on that roster was smart enough to figure out that calling your third console the first console was confusing as hell. Fans have been calling the original Xbox the Xbox One for years. And in conversation, nobody knows what you're talking about when you say Xbox One. So fans have decided to mockingly call the Xbox One the Xbone. And wouldn't you know it, this joke name is better than whatever the hell Microsoft came out with, because it rolls off the tongue a hell of a lot better. In addition, Microsoft suffered heavily that generation. They lost out to the PlayStation 4 by a metric ton. They were almost completely irrelevant to that generation. So without a doubt, Xbox One is a garbage name. And the number 2 best console name in existence goes to the Nintendo Switch. Calling your console the Switch is a super satisfying and comfortable thing to say. It's like a syllable and a half, and it's not awkward or weird in the slightest. Just saying like, hey, I'm bringing my Switch over to my friend's house, or I'm going to go play with my Switch is not weird or awkward like saying I'm going to go play with my Wii. It's awesome. And in addition, calling your console the Switch perfectly describes the main selling point for your computer. The fact that you can switch between playing the console portable in your hands or docked to your TV like a traditional console. So again, simplicity is gold. Just tell me what your console is and make it not weird to say, and you're going to go high on my list. The number 1 worst console name in existence gets awarded to the Wii U. The reason why the Wii U gets this honorable spot on this list is for the simple fact that the name alone was one of the main factors that made the Nintendo Wii U Nintendo's biggest mainstream failure in a long time. One of the reasons why the original Wii sold so well in spite of its terrible name was that A, Nintendo had a really good marketing campaign, and B, they cultivated an audience among casual fans that didn't normally play video games and were really interested in motion controls. When the Wii U came out, that casual audience that doesn't normally play video games was confused if the console was just an add-on to their regular Wii, like so many add-ons were made for the console, or if it was a console in its own entirety. Think about it. Grandma didn't know what a Wii U was when she walked into the store. When she walked into GameStop, she didn't know what the console was. In addition to being a terrible name that is confusing to casual consumers, it doesn't describe anything about the console. What does calling your console the Wii U bring attention to the fact that the console has 2 different modes of play, that it has a docked mode and a handheld mode similar to the Nintendo Switch? It doesn't tell you anything about the console, and there's a reason why it's one of Nintendo's biggest mainstream failures. And the number one greatest console name goes to it. Give me a drum roll, please. The Xbox 360. I know what you're thinking. Really? You're going to give the number one spot to the 360? I mean, it's an all right name, maybe a number 3 out of 5, but giving it the number one spot? Well, I'm going to give you a little context as to why I believe the Xbox 360 deserves the number one spot. Back in the day, Microsoft, well, at least maybe their marketing department, was run by semi-competent people. And those semi-competent people were smart enough to realize that calling their second console the Xbox 2 while competing with Sony's third console, the PlayStation 3, is a bad look. Even if your grandma is from the 17th century and she doesn't know anything about technology, she would be smart enough to realize that, hey, 3 is bigger than 2. 3 must be better than 2. So the team at Microsoft just said, fuck it, why don't we just call our second console 3 as well? And they added 2 more numbers after that, just called it the 360, and it was a stroke of marketing genius. And it was a really simple solution, but simple solutions are often the greatest solutions. And in addition to that, its name also rolled off the tongue well. It's only got 3 syllables. It isn't weird to say in conversation like, hey, I'm going to go over to my friend's house and play some 360. And it just works. And for that reason alone, just having it work gives it the number one spot.